Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and hello again, sick, twisted weather freaks. It's time for an evening update. I was thinking of just making a big long post on the Facebook page, but there's so much information out there. I want to get it out to as many people as possible about what I think is going to happen. So I decided to do another video for you. So this should not be a long one, but there's a lot of important information here, and the you have to pay attention because there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike here. All right, so we're going to talk about Florence, a little bit about Tropical Depression 8 and 9, which will become Helen and Isaac. So let's get right to it. All right, here, this is the evening satellite picture infrared, and we can see what the systems here. Obviously, this here is Florence looking a little better. This here is Tropical Depression number 8. That's 9, excuse me, here. And this one here is Tropical Depression number 8. There you go. So those are systems, very, very active pattern. Now this image here, this is of course number 9. And I want to point out to you, I don't know if you can see it in here, but you see this little swirl right in here, you see a little spin? That's the low level center. When it comes off the coast of Africa and starts spinning and the thunderstorms get wrapped up into the center, this is really nice because you can see the little dot right in there. See that right there? You can see the clouds are wrapping into it. So this is a very nice tropical depression forming here, and it'll probably become a significant storm down the road, I think, into the Caribbean. We can see it. There's depression number 9. It's going to take off and become a hurricane, certainly by early next week, it looks like, and then go into the Caribbean basin, and then be a problem for the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico and Florida, I think. Okay, this here is and so then actually this one should have been the track um, for Florence. Let me pause it. There we go. Now I fixed the slide so you can see it. That's obviously the new track for 5 p.m. for Florence. And you can see it's way south of Bermuda. Again, remember just a few days ago it was doing this, according to the Hurricane Center, everybody else. There are a few meteorologists out there which said it might come this far south, but for the most part, it's been trending that way for a reason. And we went into that reason early yesterday and this morning, and the reasoning here is still absolutely sound. So here's Hatteras, and this is the southeast coast, and look where this baby's headed. Now, how strong could it actually develop? Well, let's take a look and see. This is the latest afternoon picture. You can see it's still very exposed here. You can see the swirl, so it has a large circulation, which is impressive. You can see the swirl in here, but the clouds are still going this direction, so it's still sheared. The low level center is somewhere in here, so it's not that healthy, but it's holding on. And this is the evening picture, and you can see the same sort of thing there. Now, the water temperatures are very warm as this approaches the southwest Atlantic Ocean, and you can see, so it is going to really explode if it holds together, and I'm sure it will, and intensifies, approaches the southeast U.S. coast. Here's the 12Z GFS, okay? This is the big change. So this is the GFS for the Wednesday afternoon. There's the storm, 943 millibars, which is a category borderline 3-4 storm there, and it's approaching the east, like I said, the Carolina coast, and then finally makes landfall here at 144 hours. So this is the second one. Remember, the 6Z GFS did this as well. Now the afternoon run at 9:47, I believe that is. It might be 9:37. The GFS is probably overdoing the intensification, but we'll see. And it becomes a mighty powerful hurricane in eastern North Carolina, and it moves into right through Richmond. It looks exactly like Isabel. This is exactly like Isabel. That's what this track is. So this is the Isabel track from 2003. Look it up. You'll see it. If you didn't experience it in eastern North Carolina, Virginia, I'm sure many of you remember it. That's what it was. So now, is that valid solution? Well, the GFS is losing here. Remember, the GFS is playing catch up to the European. Yet earlier this morning, I talked about this. You can see here what the GFS was doing. When the GFS was taking the system out to sea, it was developing an upper low here. That weakened the ridge here, so Florence is doing this. Starting at 6Z this morning, and then again at midday, look, the upper low is gone. And notice how strong the ridge is here. That forces Florence to the coast. That's the change. The Europeans saw this 3 days ago, 4 days ago. The GFS is just seeing it now. This is the updated GFS. Again, look. No upper low. The ridge, much stronger, and it forces Florence to the coast. I'm glad the GFS is seeing it. In the old days, it didn't see it at all, so this is a step in the right direction, but it's still inferior to the European when it comes to these big East Coast hurricanes. It just is. And you can see the track of the GFS. There it is in Morehead City. Right here, you can see it very clearly. Morehead City. That's where there is. And then it's got the center here over Emporia, and then very close to Richmond, just west of Richmond. This is the Isabel track. It's exactly what it is. So that's viable. It's possible. I think, though, however, it's still behind the ball game. I think it's going to slide further to the west. This is the rainfall from the GFS, and you can see the numbers. If you can't recognize, again, this is, see this purple stuff in here. That is 10 inches of rain. So this whole thing in here is anywhere from 3 to as much as 10 inches. Now, the grounds in all these areas are super saturated, and there's significant rain falling today, tonight, and Sunday over much of Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. On top of the saturation, today's rains, you put these rains in here, this is going to cause flooding. Widespread, potentially historic flooding if the GFS is correct. Now, I think it's going to slide further to the west, but whoever gets this rain, given the ground conditions, are in big, big trouble. It's hard for me to overemphasize how serious the flooding is going to be from the system. Really, it's hard. Let's take a look at the GFS ensemble and see the shift. Now, this was today's, right here. Okay, this is today's. This was yesterday's. Look at the difference. The ensemble mean had some models out here, some here, some here. Big, huge, I don't know. I don't know. Now look at the GFS. Big difference. Big step towards the European. Big, big step. Why is it doing it? Here's the European again. This afternoon's European with the anomalies. Look at this extreme, extreme Bermuda High West Atlantic Ridge. See the pink? Maximum anomaly. It's one of the strongest ever seen for this time of year. That's blocking it. So if you're in New England and you think this thing's coming to New England, sorry, it ain't happening. It's not coming to New Jersey. It's not coming to New York City. It's not going to New England. Not happening. And the thing about it is, this is from 36 hours ago when it had it in Norfolk. You see the shift? Now the ridge here was massive. It was up here, 99th percentile, but it wasn't this. That's why it's being forced south. The ridge is getting stronger. Here's the new European track, 12Z, Friday afternoon European. Look what it does. Brings it along. Boop, 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 and then look what it does right in here. It stalls it over western North Carolina, West Virginia. This is a disaster in the making. This is very bad for agricultural interests. Now, it's good if you are in, if you don't want the wind and you're on the coast and you don't want the flooding and the coastal surge, that's a pretty good track. But inland, it isn't. Here's the track, high resolution European. You can see it coming in. Wednesday morning, crosses the Gulf Stream, drops to 960 millibars, a strong category, a borderline, a category 3 storm, not a 4, but a 3, very significant nonetheless. And then look what it does in here. Oops, let me clear this out. There you go. This here is, now it goes from Charleston, we can see the landfall, okay, very close to Myrtle Beach, and then here, west of Raleigh, I guess over Charlotte really is where it comes down to, yeah. So here to here, and then it stalls it in here. And you can see that the yellow represents winds up to 55, 60 knots, which is, 65 miles an hour. And then we clear it out. There's the low. It hasn't done anything. It's stuck. Now, the winds aren't great anymore. It's inland, it's falling apart, but the rain is just absolutely disastrous. Look at this rain. Oh, my God. If you are an agricultural interest, if you're farming, if you have fruit orchards, if you're running a vineyard, and you've been having a wet season, and your grounds are saturated, and you dump this amount of rain, you're going to take a big hit. This is very bad news for agricultural interests in central and northwest North Carolina, and the entire Virginia, Piedmont, the Shenandoah Valley, southwest Virginia. This is bad. So, and then if you look at the actual numbers, look at this. Holy mackerel. On top of these saturated grounds, now it's still a lot of rain if you're in Richmond, but the rains are much less. Look at the rains in eastern North Carolina and down in here, Hampton Roads. Why? Because the hurricane's way over here. That's why. So, but Richmond has 4 inches of rain. But look at this in Farmville, 13 inches of rain. Are you kidding me? And this is, and over the elevated terrain, this is even going to be heavier, folks. Over the Shenandoah Valley, the Blue Ridge Mountains, it's going to be even heavier than this. This is a disaster if this is right. And there's going to be a lot of flooding. If you live in a place that gets flooding, if you're having flooding problems already, you need to take this really seriously and make preparations right now. I would not stay. But listen, it's your life. Okay, now just to show you the difference, this was the European yesterday. You see it was on the coast? Now look where the European has it. There. That's the difference. It's shifting west. Why is it shifting west? Here are the ensembles. Look at the big shift here. I enlarge this. Look at all the members. We have very few members here of these European ensembles which are off the coast, maybe 10 of them. Everything else is here. It's not going out to sea. It's not. It's just not happening. So let's think about this outside the box here for a second, okay? And talk about our summaries. So the West shift continues. The GFS idea of a direct hit in eastern North Carolina and southeast Virginia, I believe, is probably bullshit. I think it's going to continue to shift to the west. I could be wrong. That's how I see it. The European has the lead. The dome, the ridge is very powerful. I think it's coming west. Today, the GFS essentially surrendered to the European. Once again, the Europeans leading the game, so go with the winner. The trends matter. This westward shift matters. It matters, folks. It really does. Okay, remember this? Remember when I said all the models which are not the GFS, okay, the British, the European, all show US landfall, but all the GFS models do not? There you go. Turned out to be correct. Point number 5, the grounds here are saturated. Okay, whoever gets 4 to 10 inches of rain, especially higher amounts, will see historic disastrous flooding. This is potentially a real problem. Point number 6, if the west trend continues, this would be good news for southeast Virginia, Hampton Roads, eastern North Carolina, eastern Maryland. A lot less wind, a lot less rain. But it's very bad news for western and central North Carolina, the western Virginia agricultural concerns. Farms, orchards, fruit farms, vineyards. Problems, problems, problems if this west trend continues. And if, of course, if if we end up seeing this sort of monster stall over western North Carolina, western Virginia. All right, that's the presentation. I'm meteorologist DT. I'm going to take the evening off because I'm going to be at this for a lot next week. This is going to be a long week coming up. I'll catch you guys later.